Into it we go. So, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the General Geekery Podcast, the podcast where we geek out about all the things we like to geek out about, with no remorse, no regrets, and unabashedly with all the enthusiasm at our disposal. Ugh. I just love how hyped that can get. As always, I'm Donald Kaczynski, and joining me, as always, my partner in crime, Hannah Kubiak.
Hello.
And today I wanted to bring this up as kind of a discussion thing. So, being as how we're in self-quarantine with everything happening, and me being on temporary layoff, I've had opportunity to catch up on a lot of different movies and everything like that, and I was watching on some stuff on Disney Plus, and I was thinking, I was watching the Beauty and the Beast live action remake from back in 2017, and I'm like, I have mixed feelings about remakes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to leave an open floor just to sit down and discuss just the entire concept of movie remakes in general. Because movie remakes have been prevalent like throughout Hollywood since like as far back as like the 50s and the 60s. I think one of the earliest remakes was actually the Ten Commandments.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was, if I remember correctly, it was originally I think it was like just a black and white. I don't know if it was a silent film per se. I know it was a black and white film back in like the 20s or something like that, and they brought it to color and spoken voice in like the 50s or 60s. I think they actually brought back the same director to direct it.
Oh.
I could be wrong about that, but then again, it's been eons since I've seen either version of that. But generally, like today, like for a lot of people, like the term remakes when it comes to film are genuinely met with disgust.
Yeah.
And and a big reason for all of that was the live action remakes of classic animated Disney films that Disney has been churning out like 3 or 4 a year at this point.
Wow. I don't know. I don't consume media fast enough to keep up with all this, so I'm going to take your word for it about like for example, I haven't seen the live action Beauty and the Beast.
Okay. I'm not one to judge on whether someone has or has not seen. Like, gonna be honest.
Oh, good.
It's passable. It's passable, but it leaves a weird taste in my mouth, mainly because this is gonna sound incredibly weird saying this because I don't believe anything is perfect. But Beauty and the Beast is probably one of the closest things to... The original Beauty and the Beast from 1990 is probably one of the closest things to a perfect film that I can think of.
It's definitely one of my favorites.
Mine too. It maximizes its use of time. The animation is still stunning, like, even today, 30 years later... Oh my god, it is a 30-year-old film now. What?
Absolutely.
We are in 2020, and this film was made in... The original film was made in 1990. My god.
Oh my god.
We're starting to get those feelings now. Jeez. So this is what it feels like. And I remember back in 2016, when the first couple of trailers for this live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast was announced, everyone was going crazy. This was probably like one of the most anticipated live-action adaptations for a Disney film ever. I think the Beauty and the Beast one, was more anticipated than the Lion King one. And honestly, I was excited for it too. I saw the cast who was going to be doing everything. I mean, you had Emma Watson as Belle. You had acting powerhouses such as Ian McKellen and Ewan McGregor in there. You had Josh Gad from Frozen, and probably one of the best parts of that film as a bit player as LeFou. I'm like, this can be so good, and it can capture the and it can capture the essence of the original.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even hold a candle to the original, in my opinion.
Hold on. I want to watch it now.
It's worth
Weird?
watching. It is worth watching because it is a competently made film. I'm not saying the live action version of Beauty and the Beast is bad. It's not. But it's kind of hard to recreate, because the way like Disney live action remakes have been lately is that they're trying to recreate and recapture the magic of those animated classics. Like, you compare the live action Beauty and the Beast, where it's almost like the exact same story as the original, compared to something like Maleficent and Sleeping Beauty, where Maleficent took the story to a different direction and interpretation.
Right.
Now,
yeah, I remember that. I saw that movie in theaters.
You did? Okay. So, and the thing is with Maleficent, I was actually intrigued by it, and I'm like, okay, you're gonna turn one of your biggest villains in your entire library and try to make her like a sympathetic character, even though she has done all this wrong. Okay, let's see you play this out. That's intriguing. That's something new. That's bringing something new to the table. Whether or not it worked for you or it didn't work for you, it was still something new that you could try. And I think that could, and honestly for me, that's something that you really must do with a remake, is take the original idea and take it into a new direction. Like, bring a new perspective into the works, tell the story from a different point of view, shake something up.
Yeah.
Some of the best remakes actually do that. And honestly, those remakes are honestly more beloved sometimes than the originals because of it. That's the crazy thing. like case in point, have you seen the crime film Ocean's 11 with George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and Matt Damon?
Yeah.
That is actually a remake from a Rat Pack film in like the 60s or the 70s. Yeah.
Yes. Was it Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin?
Yeah, with them.
Yeah.
I believe. That was technically, in essence, a remake. And somehow that's probably like one of the most quoted films, well, one of my most quoted films from George Clooney's library, Brad Pitt's library, and then you also got other like names in there like Don Cheadle, Bernie Mac, like everything like that.
Yeah.
So, I know a lot of people nowadays say that remakes are poison, remakes shouldn't happen, when we all kind of forget at times, remakes have been around for as long as Hollywood has been, almost as long as Hollywood has been standing.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I think it's more along the fact that we hate the idea of, like, remakes, mainly because, like, in our minds, our interpretation of remakes has been warped because of like companies like Disney redoing a lot of their classics on such a constant basis. That automatically, when we hear the term remake, our brains turn off and we're just like, nah, no thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on whether you mean that a remake is going to be basically the same movie again with different people, or if it's going to be like something that gives you a little bit more, you know?
Right, exactly. And a remake should be able to, but I think the film that really broke the camel's back lately with the entire term of a remake was The Lion King.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, some background for those that aren't aware of the impact that The Lion King has. The original film that was released in 1994 was probably Disney's biggest moneymaker ever until Frozen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it took 20 years for Disney to recreate a brand name, a title that could top Lion King. And I admit it was one of my animated films growing up, like when I was a kid. Although when I got older, my taste changes, and I'm like, my favorite animated film from the 90s was actually instead Beauty and the Beast. But I still hold on that the original Lion King was a great film. So obviously, since Disney started doing all of their remakes and everything like that, they decided, let's remake our biggest moneymaker from that time, The Lion King. Here's the story.
Yeah, I don't really know very much about how that went, to be honest, because I haven't seen that one either.
The live action one?
Yeah, no. Of course I've seen the animated one.
Fair enough. Hannah, let me put it to you this way. I saw it in full for the first time about a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
I paid for a ticket to go see it in theaters. I left 20 minutes into the film.
Oh gosh.
And here's the thing with me, with when I go to see a movie in theaters, like even if the film like turns out to be I'm not enjoying it as much, I will still sit there and watch it because one, I paid money to see the film, and two, like I want to get something good out of a film even though I'm going to see it. I was getting angry at The Lion King.
Yeah.
I had to leave right then and there. I'm like, I can't take this. Because literally all it was literally shot for shot. Just in a different medium. And I'm like, this is so lazy. Like, it's a special kind of lazy because one, you put money into the movie in order to like get like all of the movements for the animals just right so they appear real, which is really great. That's a nice touch. But you're literally recreating all of these famous shots from The Lion King almost verbatim.
Yeah.
And almost offering nothing new of it except, a different voice cast aside from James Earl Jones as Mufasa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard that he was still. Did they even have him re-record, or did they have?
They had him re-record. I can definitely tell that they re-recorded him.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it wasn't for actually listening to him as Mufasa again, I would have left a lot earlier.
Yeah.
Because I love James Earl Jones. He's one of my favorite voices in acting. And it's always a pleasure to hear his voice again.
Yeah, I appreciate it in not exactly remakes, but like sequels or something. Like they'll give original actors the opportunity to be involved. Say what you will about the latest Star Wars trilogy, but I loved seeing all of the old, reprising their roles as old. It made me happy.
Yeah.
Like,
and
for the past couple of years, I've been kind of amused by like Harrison's career basically as playing his own characters as old. Like he played old Han Solo, old Rick Deckard in Blade Runner 2049, and
Even old
And
Indiana
in
Jones.
Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, he played Indiana Jones. Like,
Yeah, he played it as like the rickety old man, and it's like, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And yeah, like again, say what you will about like the Star Wars sequels, like, but here's the thing: they at least, I will give them points in like they at least tried to do something different, even though
yeah.
sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't, but that's not what I'm here for. Like,
Even though it was basically the same story with different characters, I still.
exactly. But there's like the remakes are just, I don't understand. I just
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out in my mind like where some of this stuff went wrong. Like I see
Oh.
sometimes I see the remakes and I see potential in every which way. But the thing is, when you're trying to do a remake, you're trying to
Mhm.
make something better than what it originally was. Here's the problem with the Disney remakes. They're trying to remake some things that were already masterpieces in its time and are still considered
Mhm.
masterpieces today. Like
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, Aladdin.
Mm, yeah, like at the very suggestion or inkling of there being a princess, put my foot down on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that.
Right, right. And here's the thing. Speaking of like Aladdin, I was also rewatching the Aladdin live action remake, and there were some points in that where like there are some points where you could have done like the entire. Have you seen the live action remake of Aladdin before I get into too much detail with this?
No, but you can go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
Okay, there's an entire section during the end credits where while the credits are rolling, it's an entire Bollywood dance number. For those that are not familiar with Bollywood films, like they do an entire like dance sequences like choreographed like that, and I'm seeing a Bollywood number on a grand Hollywood scale. Why was this not the entire movie of Aladdin? It would have been something completely different and new. I'm like, I can at least give that a shot. Because
Yeah.
I can't really remember any time that a Bollywood film was given like such a big would be given a big release like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
if you really want to remake something that is already considered a masterpiece, take it in a completely different direction. Try something completely out of left field.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we're often overlooking. And I think a lot of people are scared with that with the Mulan remake that was supposed to be released around this time, but the pandemic kind of pushed it back.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing
Yeah.
hearing mixed reviews left and right about it, and I'm like, I don't even know if I even want to go see it.
I'm actually kind of excited about that one. Like, I would go and see that because Mulan was my favorite Disney. I'm also a little bit nervous.
Yeah, as you should be,
Yeah.
as you should be, because whenever you go to see a remake of a film that is near and dear to your heart, you always have that anticipation. It's like, I'm scared that this isn't going to do it justice. I had that feeling in my heart when I went to go see the live actions of Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King.
Mm-hmm.
I already told you how it ended up with The Lion
Yeah.
King. Beauty and the Beast, like I said, still competently made. It still made me sit there and watch it all. I enjoyed aspects of it, but I still prefer the original. And I'm not and I'm not one to like hate films. Like every piece of film, whether it be a masterpiece or some call it garbage, you can find some enjoyment out of it. But I think it's gotten to the point with the Disney remakes that there's too much. we're getting too much.
We need new ideas, I think.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that this is coming from yeah. It's crazy that this is coming from Disney, like that at a time was the halcyon of like brand new innovations and ideas, even though most of their animations came from pre-existing works in terms of fairy tales. But again, I just like if they're going to continue in any way doing all these live action remakes, take it in a completely different direction. Go completely out of left field and try something new. Like, hit it out of the ballpark and like take chances.
Yeah.
Because the best remakes are those that really do take chances, and while they acknowledge the source material, they still try to find new ways to encapsulate its audience and leave a lasting impact.
Right, yeah.
And some remakes get the point, like they encapsulate the audience and everything like that, but they don't leave that oomph factor, that lasting impact. And I find it kind of upsetting sometimes because a lot of those remakes have some really good ideas, but we don't often talk about them as much. Because crazy enough, when you kind of think of it, Star Wars is basically kind of like a space remake of Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, and a lot of people have actually gone on record to even say that. But Star Wars has always been its own definitive thing and even spawned its entire universe.
Yeah.
So, having all that said, I've done enough about talking about like all of that. Like, what excites us about film that always have us either going to the movie theater or finding a movie either in stores or on streaming services where we can sit down and just lose ourselves? Because to understand like how we can enjoy remakes, we have to go back to the basics on how we enjoy movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love a good story. That's just basic, but and with a remake, a lot of the time what intrigues me is I go in thinking, I wonder what do differently. That's usually what I'm trying to think, or like, I wonder how they'll manage this part, or if I know at least.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you on that. And also, it's not even just movies that take advantage of like remakes and stuff like that. Other mediums like television shows have had remakes. Paper media, especially comic books, have had storylines like redone in completely different ways. I mean, you have titles like Marvel Comics and DC Comics having like 100 different timelines in their own respective different universes.
Yep.
And a lot of them are halcyon as some of the greatest stories ever produced on paperback that is done in a visual artistic format outside of novels. So how can that be smash home runs sometimes for some TV shows and all these different comic books, but we look at movie remakes and we're just like, no, thank you. Is there something within our subconsciousness that's been kind of hardwired in lately where we're just turned off to the
Yeah.
idea.
I think it's just recently, yeah. There's sort of
Mm-hmm.
things are either a remake or a Marvel movie in the past couple of years.
In mainstream, yes. In mainstream, yes, you are kind of correct. Like Disney has kind of like dominated a good portion of like the mainstream like cinematic experiences aside from like horror films and everything like that. Like the big thing to see lately are comic films and animated more animated stuff. But then you go to outside of the generalized like cinema experiences and you see all these different art films from across the globe that are trying new stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow, interesting. Okay, this is good. I like this. And I didn't really think about it until just a moment ago. Maybe we as an audience kind of decided why. Well, we're kind of to blame for some of these remakes coming into existence.
Mm-hmm.
I actually made a comment last episode, and I remember this about
Yeah.
I was not a big fan of Frozen 2, and I never went to see the film,
Yeah.
nor do I have any plans to see it. That's mainly because of the hype, like the overblown commercialization of the original Frozen film. Like, the original Frozen is a good movie. It's a really good movie, but it was completely blown out of proportion and out of the water via marketing, similar to how the original Lion King was in like 1994. Because like I said, those are Disney's two biggest moneymakers. So for me, it was like the audience demanded a sequel to Frozen, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
you guys can demand it. I don't want any part of that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, like having a sequel to something isn't necessarily the best idea.
yeah, exactly.
Like, or running a show into the ground, like to like season after season after season until basically stops because they're out of ideas. Like I don't subscribe to doing that. I think that having something that's good is better than just trying as much, like squeeze as much out of this idea as you possibly can. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I prefer quality over quantity, definitely.
And honestly, that's what should be like strived for. We've seen too many examples in media today where too much is squeezed from a single idea or like just property.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, the people that once heralded it and loved it and like idolized it turn it completely like go against it completely. We saw that happen with the Game of Thrones finale.
Oh, yeah. Oh man, that was harsh.
Yeah,
I've only seen one episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
We should call this episode "Hannah hasn't seen any of this." I mean, I know basically what happened in Game of Thrones, just because.
Right, but you know the general outline. You just don't know some of the meatier details.
Yeah, I saw like the third to last episode ever of Game.
And wait, wasn't that?
And that was it.
Man, okay.
It was the one, whatever the one was, where Daenerys came in on her dragon and like burned lady.
Ah, okay, all right.
And what's his name and what's her name were in that cave in.
Oh yeah, okay. So you saw like one of the penultimate episodes. Got it.
Yeah. I just happened to be at somebody's house and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna watch Game of Thrones." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I have no idea what's going on.
Right.
That little lady there is really badass. I like.
Right. And yeah, like that idea of like trying to get too much out of it is what has turned me off from several different things. Like, and honestly, the remakes that Disney has been putting out is kind of following a similar pattern.
Mm.
It's like we're going back to the well and using all of this, but we're just gonna like live action it and basically almost do it scene for scene.
Yep, we're gonna try.
Exactly, and at that point, it's like, what, why are we even bothering?
Mm.
It should, and it should be like a thing where it's like the audience should be the one to determine whether a film goes or not based on if you actually go see the film.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a constant moviegoer myself, not during this pandemic right now because all the theaters are closed, I do miss the cinema experience. I do, but
Yeah.
like a big reason like why some films are successful and have all these consecutive runs and everything like that is because they do well at box office. Now, streaming services have kind of like diminished like that importance a bit.
Yeah.
Which at one point is kind of upsetting, but completely understandable because we now live in a more digital age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's still important to know like if a film does good based on ticket sales and audience responses. Even if audience responses can be poor, ticket sales mean that the film is still a success. And honestly, that's still how Disney is getting away with a lot of these things. That's how a lot of summer blockbusters have been getting away with not really getting a great critical reception from audiences, but the ticket sales are saying people are still buying this. That means it's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately, the remakes fall into that category.
Yeah. So, what would you say is a remake that you enjoy, found to be
A remake that I
found to be good? What's your favorite remake?
That is a very good question. Okay, I don't
have an answer to the question either, because as become apparent throughout this episode, I haven't watched very many.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's hard to find a good remake. But if I had to say a good recent remake that has actually like improved is actually the 2017 release of Stephen King's It.
Ooh.
Because you compare, and I'm talking just the first part. The second part can be a little bit hit or miss. But the first part where it's mainly the section of the story where they're all children. Yes. 110% yes. Because you look at the television movie that was released in 1990, it's laughable by today's standards.
Yeah.
And you look back at that and it's like, we were scared of this in the 1990s? But then again, the people of that time had a different mindset than most people today. But you take a look at the 2017 version, and there are aspects where they're like they took many different chances and different ideas compared to the original 90s, to the 90s television film. Of course, both are adapted from a Stephen King novel, but still. Both stand off enough on its own as its own things.
Yeah.
So that's an example of a remake done right and in the hands of the right kind of people. Yeah. Another remake I find to be another thing, again, going back to the Stephen King well on this, is Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary.
A chilling story. What's up?
I said I want to see that.
It's really good. It was actually good. I found it to be more chilling and scary. It was more atmospheric compared to like the original Pet Sematary that was released. So I'm like, okay, this is something. This is a new kind of experience with the same story. That's what I think a remake should do. It should, even though you're going to be telling the same story almost, you want to bring a new experience to it, like a new perspective, a new something changing. You either change out like some of the characters, a little bit of the background, change up the atmosphere a little bit. You can accomplish so much by doing a little, just a tiny major change in one area, but still have it be major.
Yeah.
Take that chance. And it pulls it, and this pulls it off in spades.
Let's see. Let me see if I can think of some. Oh, you know what's really good? A really good remake is 310 to You.
What was that?
310 to Yuma.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The remake with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale and Logan Lerman is his name? Logan.
Yeah, I agree. That was actually a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did find myself enjoying that.
I love that one. Let's see. Looking at a list of remakes on Wikipedia.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
It's alphabetical, which is why 310 to Yuma came up first.
No, it's okay. Oh,
there's a lot of remakes.
Yeah, there's a lot more remakes than like people like kind of understand at times. One that I like as well is the remake of Evil Dead.
Okay.
The original Evil Dead is a cult classic film. It was an indie film on a small budget that launched the careers of Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi in mainstream. It's one of the cheesiest, hilarious horror films you can find. And so they remade it in like the early 2010s, and people were initially put off by it just by the mere mention of it. But it was actually a really good film. Like it went more in the way of like it went more with the gore, like the gory aspects, but it still was the same kind of story as the original Evil Dead, just taken to a new extreme, which ultimately still makes for an okay remake. So there was that. Honestly, some of the craziest things, some horror remakes are actually some of the best examples of remakes you can find.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
What about let's see. There was a remake of the Count of Monte with Guy Pearce and
Ooh,
that was pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard good things about. I've heard good things about that too. I haven't seen it, but again, The Count of Monte Cristo is a classic story that has been retold many different times, and so many of those retellings are some standout work.
Yeah,
standout work.
Yeah.
Gesundheit. Gesundheit again.
Dankeschön.
Bitteschön.
Let's see. I'm looking at a lot of these and I say, whoa, that's a remake? Or
you know what's a really hilarious remake though? Like it was a good remake for like the wrong reasons. The Mummy with Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
like okay, so the original Mummy film from like the 1920s, 1930s with Boris Karloff as the Mummy, a fantastic example of a good early horror film.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the '90s Mummy with Brendan Fraser, it's so cheesy and hilarious. It's just like you kind of sit back and you're like, you're enjoying it for like different reasons compared to like the original. It's just like they took this in such a weird new direction. You just kind of have to sit back and just be like, huh,
yeah,
okay, yeah. So yeah, there's that. Oh, and even then,
you know what?
Oh, sorry, you first.
You know what else I find interesting is the different adaptations of like Jane Austen and Charles Dickens. All of that.
Oh yeah, okay. Especially,
there's so much material there you can get through.
How many film adaptations of A Christmas Carol have there been?
Oh, many.
There have been so many. There, like from television films to from television film specials to live action films to even animated films. Like you've got the Mickey Mouse Christmas Carol that's like 45 minutes to an hour. It's a short film.
Yeah.
And it's one of like the most endearing adaptations of it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't know.
Good remakes exist.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, like I've seen probably my favorite Jane Austen book is Emma, and I've seen a couple of remakes of it. I love them all for different.
Right. Absolutely.
Like, there's some that are like a mini series where it's 6 hours long in total, and then there's like a movie. You know, just depends on what you're in the mood for. No.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, the crazy thing is, some of the best work that's produced by a lot of like big names in Hollywood were actually remakes of other foreign films. Do you know the film The Departed with Matt Damon
The Departed?
and
Of course I do.
So yeah,
Matt Damon, Leo DiCaprio.
Yep. Done by one of the great
Samantha Smith in that as well.
Yeah, it basically The Departed. For those that haven't seen The Departed, directed by Martin Scorsese, definitely check it out. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of his best like works in recent years. Tells the story of basically there's two moles. One that works for the mafia that went into the police, and one that works for the police that goes into the mafia. Both of these moles are played respectively by
Vera Farmiga. I always get them.
What's up?
Go ahead. Sorry. Nothing. It's not Samantha Smith. It's Vera Farmiga.
Ah, gotcha.
They're just two beautiful blonde actresses that I admire.
Right. So yeah. Basically, it's a sniffing contest in order to try to figure out like who to try to find the mole in each one, and each of the respective moles are played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon. Mm-hmm. That film itself is actually a remake of a 2002 Hong Kong film named Internal Affairs. I've seen both, and both are good.
Oh yeah, the 2002 Hong Kong film Internal.
Yeah, it takes a while to like I didn't even know if it was a remake until like a few years ago when I actually started looking into film a lot more. Mm-hmm. Like at the behest of some of my friends from UW Milwaukee who were actually in the film department and were actually film study majors, and they were telling me all this information. I'm like, I'm actually going to take the time to actually go off and actually research some of this stuff on my own. So the crazy thing, and when you look more at it, the crazy thing is a lot of the big hitting films, like some of the best films that is made in Hollywood, are actually remakes of pre-existing works, either in film that has already been done or other things. For example, the Seven Samurai concept has been redone in film numerous times.
Yeah. Yep. It's Seven Samurai.
It's basically a trope, but it's such a good trope.
The Seven Samurai, then there's the Magnificent Seven.
Yep, exactly.
And A Bug's Life has the same.
Okay, yeah. That's kind of like the weirdest thing. Like, Disney Pixar's Bug's Life is actually like a weird kind of adaptation of Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
I did not even think about that until you just mentioned it, and I'm like, oh my god, that makes way too much sense now.
Yeah. But yeah, as part of creativity is like, I'm trying to think. My mom loves to tell me over and over again about the two different kinds of imagination. There's like inventive imagination and derivative imagination. Where inventive imagination, you can come up with something completely new, but derivative imagination is kind of like you sort of take something that you know and you use some of it to create something, you know?
Right. And honestly, like, in a lot
And
of...
derivative imagination isn't bad. You just have to take something that you admire and make it into something else.
Right. You're using like that pre-existing knowledge as a jumping off point in order to create what you want to create. I totally agree with you on that. And that's the crazy thing. Like, a lot of really good films have just been... Remakes are a constant fixture in like film and everything like that. We don't realize it until you actually delve deeper into like the past of like Hollywood taking these ideas from other films in other countries. Like, there was like a time span between like the 90s to like the late 2000s where a lot of horror films were being inspired from original horror films from Spain, Mexico, and Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was like a big thing back then, and for
cat is right by them.
Yeah, and for us being in America, like, we didn't bat an eye.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't bat an eye because we didn't have like all that information at our fingertips like we do today, where we can do more research now. And I think that's like a big thing that has like shifted as much because we're being more aware of this. The reason why remakes don't work as much now today is because of a few things, which comes for us as viewers. One, our perception has changed. We now know sometimes what to look for, what to expect. Like, your general viewer now has a different perspective as opposed to a viewer from like the early 2000s. If that makes any kind of sense.
Oh yeah, it does.
Because since we live in a digital age where anybody can say anything about whatever they want, everyone is a critic.
Mm-hmm.
Look no further than the review site Rotten Tomatoes. Like, just from that site alone, anyone can be a critic.
Yeah.
And sometimes some critics have right opinions and everything like that, but other times, like, people are just saying that just because, like, they just want their voice heard. But other than that, like, there's that. And honestly, some people are just... We also live in an age now where, like, people love to nitpick a lot more, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I can't remember anything from, like, the past 10 years that I can look back on 10 years from now when a film was, like, 20 years old or anything like that and consider it a classic.
We're talking 2000? No, 10 years ago. It's 2010.
Yeah, I know. It's weird to think about that too right now. But it's kind of weird. Like, again, you look at some films in the early 2000s and we look back at some of the early 2000 works and we're like, those films are masterful. They're great. They're going to be ingrained in the history of film for years to come.
Yeah. Oh, 2010. In came Shutter Island came out.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
Those were the two movies where Leonardo DiCaprio played basically the same character.
He kind of did a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Those are both great movies.
Right.
But I do not remember if the character Tangled Airbender.
Oy. Last Airbender, my God.
Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 1. Ooh, the what's his name? Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, that is that's a remake unto itself, and that I think that's a remake where
Tim Burton, the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland.
I think that was a remake that I think was given like too much room to like make itself different because it didn't feel like Alice in Wonderland. Like to me.
How to Train Your Dragon was released in 2000.
Yeah, that was a good one too. But also in terms of like
Pilgrim versus the World.
Oh God. But yeah, like I think just because like our perception has changed in terms of like going to view films and everything like that, we have a little bit more of like a jaded opinion when it comes to certain phrases that are used in cinema, like the term remake. And yeah, like either two things need to change in order to like change that. One, the filmmakers and the companies that are in charge of producing these films need to take some bigger chances. I feel like sometimes in order to differentiate, like you can't go into a remake trying to recapture the magic and try to create something new because Disney fails. Disney has failed on that with several of their live action remakes before. Like you can remake those animated classics, but there's a reason why those animated classics are heralded as classics.
Yeah.
There are stories that can't be replaced.
Yeah.
So if you want to remake them and have them stand out, make them memorable in the weirdest ways. Try new choices. Really think outside of the box. Think so far outside of the box, like you're in a different box factory. You're creating a different kind of box.
Yeah.
Just take chances. What's up?
No, nothing. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
You're on a roll. You're on a roll.
Yeah, and then secondly, no, it's okay. All right, so yeah, that's something that filmmakers and film producers need to do. For us as viewers, we need to expand. We need to like open our minds in order to take this in. In our world today, people are so quick to judge and be very judgmental and just be like, no, as soon as like the first sound hits and we're just like, and instantly I'm turned off. We need, like we say, like we're open-minded and everything like that, then be open-minded. Be a sponge that must absorb information instead of being like a fly swatter trying to swat away like these things that you find insignificant. Because you're not doing that, I feel like sometimes we often jump the gun and put down films that honestly should deserve more credit.
Yeah. Oh, I found it. My favorite remake.
Let's hear it.
All right. It was made in 2010, which is why I found it, because I was looking at all of those.
Okay.
My favorite remake ever is the Coen brothers remake of. Have you ever seen it?
The Coen brothers remake of what?
True Grit.
Oh.
Yeah, with
That
Jeff Bridges and Haley Steinfeld and Matt Damon and Josh Brolin.
fun
It was
fun
so
fun
good.
fun fact. The original True Grit is one of my favorite
Yeah,
Western films of all time.
Yeah, yeah, the remake of the movie with John Wayne.
Yeah, so I had a level of expectation going into the film. The remake actually did really good. The remake did really good. It was nice.
Oh yeah.
Like they changed up the cinematography and score and everything like that. They didn't change the story too much. They just changed some small aspects to make it stand apart. And so the remake of True Grit actually stands as an excellent piece of work. Mm-hmm. That is a remake done right. And honestly, to have that as your favorite remake, that is actually an excellent choice. I applaud you for that choice.
Thank you.
I do not hear many people say the True Grit remake as a choice for some of their favorite remakes. So good on you. Good on you.
Yeah. We could I feel like this warrants more discussion, to be honest. Like, what makes a good remake?
Yeah, we can.
Maybe in another episode sometime we can compare True Grit to the remake of The Lion. what
Yeah,
what's going on?
Yeah, this needs to be this really does need to be a two-parter, because this episode we were talking about a lot about like why, like, just the concept of just the concept of terrible remakes. We spent some time on good remakes, but I feel like we didn't spend enough time. So this really does need to be a two-parter. Hopefully we can do that soon.
Yeah.
But I think we can probably leave it off like with that for today.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Because wow, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry if I went a little bit off too much, because my God, I
don't know. That's okay. That's what I apologized for the last episode, and you said that.
It's what we geek out about. We get very impassioned sometimes about what we love.
Yep.
Like I said, unabashedly, no remorse, no regrets.
No regrets.
None.
Oh, another example of the Seven Samurai trope.
Yeah.
Or remake.
What's up?
Galaxy Quest.
Funny thing is, when you kind of think about it, that's kind of like a remake of two different things, kind of Seven Samurai and Star Trek.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's like a melding of two worlds, and it's
Samurai in the Star Trek universe.
Right.
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh yeah. We're
anyway. Yeah. Should we sign off?
Yeah, we can sign off with that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the General Geekery Podcast. If you guys have any thoughts about your thoughts about movie remakes or anything like that, please you guys can leave us a comment either on social media at all of our different social media sites. General Geekery on Twitter. Well, it's either General Geekery on Instagram or on Twitter, or at Gen Geek Podcast on Facebook and on Twitter. Otherwise, you can also take a listen to our podcast on all podcasting platforms: Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker, Podhost, all of that good stuff. We are also on my personal YouTube channel, Anime Rev Productions, for all your podcast listening purposes. Hannah, where can they check you out at?
Well, you can find me rolling dice with my party every Monday at 7:30 at twitch.tv/Loaded Dice Adventures. You can also follow me on Instagram at Pythian Legume, and you can check You can check me out talking to my mom, all things geek related through the generations on the Splankniks podcast, which can be found pretty much anywhere you can listen to a podcast.
Definitely go check them out. They have some wonderful discussions, and I love listening to them all the time. And as for myself, you guys can check me out on social media at Instagram and Twitter at RyuzakiMK7. And you can also check me out 4 to 5 times a week on twitch.tv at RyuzakiMK7 as well. That's gonna be it for right now. This has been episode 28 of the General Geekery podcast, all about movie remakes. So we hope to see you guys again soon. Hopefully during a time where this pandemic has lightened up and the world seems a little bit brighter, and I can stop torturing myself by watching movie remakes over and over again. Maybe one day. Okay, I just made myself sad there. I'll be all right. So until next time, guys. For Hannah Kubiak, I'm Donald Kaczynski. And just stay safe out there, everybody. And always remember, remakes are a constant fixture in society. Just open your mind a little bit to interpretation. But while you do that, always remember to keep your geek on.
Always.
Yes. Oh, and clink, clink. Ooh, that was a loud one.
Clink, clink. That sounded water dropping into a very deep cave.